Hello, thank you so much for joining me today on Super Pants Gaming for episode 5 of Quick 6, where I use an online random generator to generate 6 games that I'm going to give very short 1-minute reviews for. In a second, my sensible adult's going to press the button and give us our first 2 games. So go for it, let's see what our first 2 games on this episode are. We have 2 PS4 games. We have Moonlighter and SteamWorld Dig 2. So, that's brilliant. I guess I'm going to go and see you in the dungeons or the shop on Moonlighter. Moonlighter is a hybrid action RPG and shop management game. I first played Moonlighter on the Xbox One, then soon after acquired a physical copy on the PS4. Here I'm using the PS4 version of the game. The core gameplay loop evolves around dungeon crawling at night through a series of increasingly difficult dungeons in order to loot items, then selling those items during the day in your shop, ensuring you keep hold of anything you may need for upgrading your gear. The money you then make can be spent towards upgrades or developing the village. To sell items, you have to gauge the price depending on the customer's reactions. This feels like a neat mechanic. As with any game, the core loop can become a little repetitive, but the procedurally generated dungeons offer a range of bosses and guardians to be defeated to help keep it from becoming too stale. This game may not be for everyone, but I've certainly enjoyed my time with Moonlighter and I'm giving it an 8. Well, the RNG is certainly spoiling me with PS4 indies today. SteamWorld Dig 2 is a direct sequel to the 2013 game SteamWorld Dig. Here you play as Dorothy, a steam-powered robot in search of Rusty, the protagonist from the first game. Set in El Machino, this action platformer has you traverse a deep and dangerous mine beneath the town as you unearth treasures and secrets while evolving the story of Rusty's whereabouts. You dig up minerals to sell for upgrades and discover cogs to further then upgrade your abilities to help you further traverse the ever more dangerous terrain. I feel these systems are excellently implemented and help flesh out the game in comparison to the original. With that said, I'd highly recommend checking out the first game prior to digging into this, as that too is a blast to play and the story here continues from where that left off. Ultimately, this is an excellent game, 8.5. Yeah, so there we are, that's the first 2 games done, and that's a couple of indies on the PS4, and I absolutely love my indie games on the PS4. So yeah, so that's been absolutely awesome. So my sensible adult now is going to generate the next 2 games for us. So go for it, let's see what we get. Okay, that's quite interesting. We have Jak and Daxter, that's the first one on the PS2, that's brilliant. And then on the Xbox 360 we have Dirt Showdown. So, yeah, that'll be great. I'll see you on the PS2. Jak and Daxter, The Precursor's Legacy is a 2001 PS2 game by Naughty Dog. You know, the studio that brought you Crash Bandicoot and the Uncharted games prior to becoming the perennial re-releases of The Last of Us. At its core, Jak and Daxter is a puzzle platformer, but it's so much more than just that. The game is full of charm and humour and an absolute blast to play. You play as Jak with the quest to return Daxter to his human form after he's accidentally turned into that orange thing. It's an Ottsel, obviously, half otter, half weasel. The gameplay is fluid and immersive and still feels amazing over 2 decades after its release on original hardware. I remember at the time being conflicted as to whether this or Ratchet & Clank was the superior title, but I'm not indulging in that particular napalm fight today. Safe to say, this first Jak and Daxter game probably features in my top 100 games of all time. As this title is available on later consoles, you really have no excuse not to give it a try. 9. While you probably associate the Dirt series with rallying, this title is more of an off-road demolition racer and somewhat more akin to titles like Wreckfest and Flatout. For those of you craving a deeper rally-based simulation, this is not that game, but a far more arcadey affair. Where the game succeeds is being fun, with several different game modes to explore, because who doesn't want to ram a rival off a giant helipad or T-bone a transit van on the North Circular? A figure of 8 race. While the game is definitely a lot of fun, certain elements do feel a little bare bones, but if you can pick a copy up for a few quid and don't go in expecting a pure rally experience, this game is definitely worth a look. I've always loved games like this, right back to the days of Demolition Derby, so I may be scoring this a little bit higher than most, but for me this is definitely an 8. Yeah, so there we are. That's 4 absolutely awesome games in a row. Let's hope the Sensible Adult can keep this up when she now presses the button for our next 2 games. So, go on. Let's see what we've got. And we have King of Route 66 on PS2, which I can't quite remember very well, and Dante's Inferno on the PS3. So yeah, that's going to be absolutely awesome. I'll see you out there trucking people. The King of Route 66 is a sequel to 18-Wheeler and was released on the PS2 in 2003 by Sega. This may have worked in the arcades as a high-octane racer to sink a few minutes into, but ultimately I found this a chore to play on the PlayStation 2. The story does its best to piece together a series of short stages where you usually drive from point A to point B, often needing to beat the computer that seems to have a whole completely different rule set. Graphically, it's not aged well, and with a whole host of outdated cliches, what you have is somewhere along the lines of a clunky cringe fest. I was hopeful going into this one, but now feel it's one that should maybe be left in the past as a reminder that even back then some of the bigger studios released garbage. With this still sat on my shelves, I have to question my culling technique, and it's with a regret I declare this a bit of a stinker and give it a 4. Dante's Inferno was developed by Visceral Games and released on various 7th generation consoles in 2010. Here I'm taking an early look at the PS3 version of the game. This has been sat in my backlog for a while, and I now wish I played it sooner as it's an absolute blast. Loosely based on Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, you play as Dante, a Templar knight from the Crusades who's basically a war criminal. I don't want to spoil the plot at all here, as this story-driven action-adventure game truly needs to be experienced firsthand. As Dante, you'll descend the 9 circles of hell, guided by poet Virgil, casting your divine reckoning on all those you meet, all the while consuming souls to unlock new powers. It's hard not to say the game plays a lot like a God of War title, but there's enough here for me to wholeheartedly recommend this to anyone who's a fan of the genre and doesn't mind a bit of good old-fashioned gore as you hack and slash your way through whatever abominations the underworld has to throw at you. I personally can't wait to find the time to fully complete this 7th generation gem, and as an early impression I'm giving it an 8. So there we are, that rounds off episode 5 of Quick 6, and that was another great episode to be honest, so I like it when it doesn't just give me shovelware. So yes, anyway, thank you so much for being here guys. Please hit all the buttons and stuff below. I don't need to tell you that because you're awesome. I'm Soup and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.